A few years ago, a jury of 12 Manhattan residents found former US President Donald Trump guilty of 34 felonies in the Stormy Daniels hush money case. The conviction was a quick one. The jury found Trump guilty in just 2 days after a trial that lasted nearly 50 days. The case involves Trump falsifying business documents to cover up a payment of $1.3 lakh made to porn actor Stormy Daniels. The payment was made during the 2016 presidential election season to ensure her silence about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump in 2006. Each one of the 34 felonies Trump is convicted carries a maximum sentence of 4 years and a fine of $5,000. But there is a 20-year sentencing cap in New York State for such offenses. The judge would also decide that the sentences could be served concurrently. Conventional wisdom, however, suggests that Trump is unlikely to go to jail because Class C felonies are the least serious category and Trump has no previous felony convictions. Moreover, he is 77, is a former president and could be president again in a few months, and the crime in question is not a violent one. As the jury has reached a guilty verdict, the next step would be sentencing, and the sentencing hearing is scheduled to start on July 11. Fortunately or unfortunately for Trump, it comes just 4 days before the Republican National Convention starts in Wisconsin, where Trump is expected to be formally anointed as the Republican Party's presidential nominee. Judge Juan Merchan, the presiding judge in the case, has the sole authority of sentencing Trump. State law gives the judge a fairly wide margin in deciding the punishment. He could set Trump free, deeming that the time spent for the trial in itself is the punishment. Or he could opt for a conditional discharge, essentially sending Trump home, ordering him to perform some sort of community service. Another option is probation, in which case Trump will have to report to a probation officer, usually a junior civil servant, and it could be a big test for his giant ego. And he'll have to do it regularly and may face jail time if he breaks any law during this period or violates any other conditions imposed by the judge on probation. The last option is, of course, to impose a prison sentence. Going by the judge's statement so far, he may not be keen to send Trump to jail, especially because of its political ramifications, as Trump, as I said earlier, is a former president and could be president in a few months once again. If Trump is indeed awarded a prison sentence, he will certainly appeal the verdict, and the process could take months or even years till all possible options are exhausted. He could approach the appellate division in Manhattan first, and if the verdict is upheld, he could move to the Court of Appeals in Albany, the capital of the state of New York. If the Court of Appeals too doesn't help, the final option for Trump is to approach the Supreme Court. But theoretically, Trump will have to show that some federal or constitutional violation has taken place in this case, because this is a state case. Only then will the Supreme Court could step in. Given the conservative bent of the Supreme Court these days, now don't forget that there are 3 justices appointed by Trump on the bench, and it is well within the realm of possibility. For instance, 2 months ago, after Colorado and Maine disqualified Trump from contesting the presidential elections by invoking Section 3 of the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution, which disqualifies people who engages in insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution, after taking an oath to defend it, the Supreme Court stepped in and said that the states did not have the power to do so. However, if Trump remains convicted after exhausting all his appeal options, he will not be able to pardon himself in this case, as this is a state crime and only the governor of New York has the power to issue a pardon. Now, if Trump receives a sentence of 1 year or less, he would be sent to the infamous Rikers Island, home to the Department of Corrections' 7 jails within New York City. But if the sentence is for more than a year, then the Department of Corrections would choose from one of its 44 prisons across the state to house the former president. Trump would continue to enjoy his Secret Service protection even when he is in jail, as the agency is mandated to protect the former president round the clock. And Secret Service agents would work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep Trump safe in jail. Interestingly, Trump can run for president from jail, and that is because nothing in the American Constitution prevents a felon from running for president if he is a natural-born citizen who is at least 35 years old and has lived in the US for 14 years or more. He could still run and win even if he is in jail. But what happens next will be interesting. For instance, how Trump will take the oath as president and how he will discharge his official duties from a prison cell. There will not be a West Wing or a situation room on Rikers Island. Technically, the vice president and a majority of the cabinet could invoke the 25th Amendment and transfer the presidential authority to the vice president. But all those cabinet positions will be filled by Trump supporters, so nothing would basically happen without Trump's approval. The last time a convicted felon contested as the for a US president's post was more than 100 years ago, in 1920. Eugene V. Debs then ran for president from a federal prison in Atlanta as a Socialist Party candidate. But he was in jail for a noble cause. He was serving a 10-year sentence for defiantly disobeying a law he thought was unjust, the Sedition Act of 1918. It was an anti-free speech measure which limited the freedom of American citizens of speaking out against the government. But then Debs was not a major party candidate, so there was no realistic chance of him being president. But in the case of Trump, there is a real chance that he would win. Clearly, the founding fathers never thought that their country would one day be run by a convicted felon.